I didn't notice the trench at first. The wind had already started filling it back in. We were running a routine patrol along an old cattle trail about 20 miles east of the port, early 2000s. That corridor was usually quiet, mostly ranch traffic, the occasional group trying to walk north at night, nothing organized. If something big was happening, you heard rumors long before you saw it. That morning, the radio was dead calm. My partner Torres slowed the truck and leaned forward over the wheel. "You see that?" Torres asked. I stepped out and walked back along the trail. At first, it looked like a wash cut by rain. It doesn't rain much out here, but when it does, it can be torrential, and the rain and the water will cut little trenches through the desert like this. But this time, I saw the edges, and this wasn't rain. These were too straight, too perfect. Someone had dug a trench across the trail, about 3 feet wide. Fresh soil piled along the sides, not amateur work either. Whoever did it used equipment. I dropped into the trench and brushed sand off a length of gray plastic conduit. "It's cable," he said. Torres got out and crouched beside me. Then we noticed the ventilation pipe. It ran downward at a clean angle, disappearing under the hard pack. Torres looked at me and said quietly, "That's not just cable." And suddenly the quiet morning didn't feel quiet anymore. We called it in and started clearing the sand by hand. Conduit bundle fed directly into a reinforced opening just under the trail. Someone had framed it with treated lumber and sealed the edges with foam. The entrance was narrow, just wide enough for a person to crawl. "Smuggling tunnel?" Torres asked. "Maybe," he said. But smuggling tunnels usually run toward houses or warehouses on the US side of the border, somewhere with a vehicle, with access, somewhere private. This one pointed straight into the desert. In fact, there was nothing around. We flagged the site and waited for supervisors and the tunnel team from the sector office. While we waited, Torres and I walked the area looking for tire tracks and sign. There were some heavy equipment, maybe a small excavator, but the tracks didn't lead to a nearby property or anything. They faded into a rocky wash a half a mile away. It's like whoever brought the equipment in didn't want anyone following them out. By noon, we had a camera probe in place. The tunnel dropped about 8 feet below the trail and leveled out into a tight crawl space lined with plywood sheets. The conduit and ventilation pipe ran along the ceiling. "This looks recent," the tech said over the radio. "How far?" the supervisor asked. The tech fed the camera further in, still going. "Direction?" "Head north." It didn't make sense. Smuggling tunnels come north, sure, but they come out somewhere useful. This one just kept going into nothing. The camera made it about 100 yards before the signal dropped. That was when the supervisor decided to go in. I drew the short straw with Torres. In fact, we were happy to do it. We had found the thing, and this would be the most interesting work we were likely to do in a week. We suited up with respirators and headlamps. A couple other guys crawled into the entrance one at a time. The air smelled like cut lumber and damp sand. Whoever built it knew what they were doing. The tunnel walls were cut and braced every few feet. No sagging, no loose soil. Ventilation fans hummed somewhere deeper inside. Torres crawled ahead of me. "You hear that?" he said. "Sounds like fans." "Yeah," Torres said, "they're still running." Which meant someone had powered the space recently. We kept moving. The tunnel stretched farther than I expected. 100 yards turned into 2. The floor was flattened and reinforced with rubber mats, so crawling was easier. That wasn't normal either. Most tunnels are rough, quick jobs, at least back then in the 90s and 2000s. This one was built to be used often. About 300 yards in, Torres stopped. "There's light," he said. My headlamp caught a glint in the edge of a wooden door frame. A door, underground. Torres pushed it open and crawled through. The tunnel widened into a small room carved out of the hard soil, maybe 8 feet across. reinforced walls. Ceiling was low, but looked solid. Plywood, beams. It was empty. No people, at least. There were a couple of low plywood shelves. Bottles of water. Cases. Cases of canned food. Battery packs. 3 small folding chairs. The small, squat camp kind. We scanned the room for people, our weapons drawn in case. After we realized there was no one, Torres turned to me and said, "This isn't a transit point." I nodded. It looked like a place that people stayed. Then I saw the table. It was small, and everything in that room was. A short card table. 2 handheld radios sat on it, beside a portable radio scanner, a police scanner. The scanner was wired into the conduit we had seen earlier and powered. Someone had run cable through the tunnel, probably feeding an antenna somewhere else, too. The scanner was on. In fact, we could hear our own dispatch channel crackling through the speaker. This is before frequencies that were encrypted, before secure radios. You could pick up a cheap police scanner at any Radio Shack or location and listen to police traffic. Of course, that all changed now, but back then it was a different world. Torres stared at it. "They've been listening to us," he said. "Not just listening, tracking." A notebook sat next to the radios, times written in pencil, notes, patrol routes, shift changes. Put a glove on and looked at it. There were vehicle numbers. Someone had been logging Border Patrol traffic for weeks, maybe months. I flipped through the pages. Every patrol in that corridor was mapped out, at least everything within miles. When units passed the cattle trail, when helicopters came through, even which agents tended to stop for breaks near certain roads. Torres leaned closer. "They knew we were coming this morning," he said quietly. I didn't answer, because he might have been right. Then Torres pointed toward the far wall. "Look, there's more." Behind the shelves was another narrow tunnel branch. It was shorter. It ended in a metal ladder bolted to the soil. We climbed up carefully and pushed open the hatch above it. Surprisingly, sunlight poured in. We stepped out onto the flat desert. No buildings, no roads. Nothing but scrub brush and dry wind. The hatch sat hidden inside a cluster of mesquite bushes about 400 yards north of the border. From that point, you could see the cattle trail perfectly. You could also see our patrol trucks coming from almost a mile away. Torres turned slowly in a circle. "So this is it," he said. "A lookout hole?" But it wasn't just a lookout. The radio scanner below meant whoever sat here could hear our patrol calls in real time. They knew when agents were moving, when units were tied up, when helicopters were airborne. And the tunnel let them disappear underground the second anyone got remotely close. The hatch wasn't impressive. You could see the outline standing there on the desert floor, but it was completely obscured by the bushes. There's no way you'd see it unless you knew where it was. We stood there a while without saying anything. The area and the sector had been relatively quiet for months. No big runs, no traffic spikes, nothing unusual. Which meant something else. Someone had been watching us the entire time. Not to move people, not to move drugs, just to learn how we worked. Back at the station that night, intelligence took the notebook and the radios. Chain of custody, evidence. They'd have intel value. They shut the tunnel down within a week, collapsed it after documenting it and taking pictures. We never got a clear answer about who built it, but the logs in that notebook covered almost 6 months of patrol activity. 6 months of someone sitting in that underground room listening to our radios, learning our routes, learning our timing, waiting for the moment when knowing all of that would matter. And the part that still bothers me is this. The tunnel didn't point toward anything important. It pointed toward us.